Hi everyone. Today I sat down with Dr. Allison Alford. She is a communication expert and also the author of Daughtering 101. She helps adult daughters celebrate their purpose and find confidence in their lives, as well as how to set boundaries and live a healthy emotional lifestyle. Absolutely love this interview with her. I think it's going to be great for homeschool moms who watch this. Homeschool dads can also take a lot away from this to support the women in their life. Absolutely loved it, and I hope you guys enjoy. Thank you so much for joining me today. I can't wait to talk about what you do with Daughtering 101. Just to start off, could you share a little bit more about yourself and what you do?
Yes, I'm Dr. Allison Alford, and I am a scholar, a researcher of family communication. I work at Baylor University as a clinical associate professor, and I am a daughter, a wife, a mom, and I guess a member of my community as well. So I started Daughtering 101, which is a really kind of a hub or community for like-minded people to find information because I noticed that there was a lack of information or a lack of a space for women to come to learn more about our role as daughters, both the beautiful parts and the enjoyable parts, the benefits and the pain points of what can get sticky or tricky when we're kind of in the weeds of life. So I created Daughtering 101 as a place where you can get the information that you need, or you can connect people who have the information that you want.
I love that. That's amazing. So then, based off of your personal experiences, what inspired you to create Daughtering 101?
Yes. So around 10 years ago is when I finished my PhD, and I was earning a PhD from UT Austin. And I studied family communication, and I also did my master's degree there. And so, as I was studying family communication, I really was noticing that we have quite a bit of material about parenting, how to be a good parent,
Yeah.
particularly mothering, and also the difficulties, how hard it's hard
Mhm.
work. And we
Yeah.
have a lot of material about having romantic relationships, partners, marriages, spouses, and
Hmm.
we didn't really have enough information or anything out
Mm.
there saying what do we do in our daughter role? What are we responsible for?
Yeah.
What
Yeah.
should we do? How do we calibrate that? And so it was really during that doctoral work, which anybody who gets a PhD or anybody who's wondering about a PhD, it's a lot of reading and thinking. And
Yeah.
then you sort of decide, what do I want to put out in the world? What kind of new
Mm.
knowledge or new ideas do I want to help generate? Or what
Yeah.
do I want to find answers to?
Mhm.
And so that was really where I felt like in my family that I was raised in, it's full of strong women, smart women. Women were leading every event, and
Mhm. Mhm. Yeah.
and that was not just from the mom position, but from the daughter position.
Yeah.
And so that kind of started my quest to uh, think I want to learn more about what it means to be an adult daughter in your
Mhm.
20s, 30s, 40s, 50s, and I want to elevate our awareness of how
Yeah.
important daughtering is in our lives,
Yeah.
even though we don't talk about it as much, or it doesn't get as much social recognition. We
Yeah.
don't get as much kudos for it.
Yeah. That's great. Have you seen, I'm just curious, have you seen this? I know there's a social media trend going around about being the oldest daughter. Have you seen that? And what are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, the eldest daughter syndrome. That's
Yeah.
been going around since about 2023, I think,
Mhm.
and maybe early 2024. And so for anybody who's not aware, it's social media posts by women who are talking about the difficulty of being the
Mhm.
oldest female child in their
Yeah.
family, and how when they were growing up in childhood, they had a disproportionate amount of responsibility
Mhm.
for either adult behaviors that children shouldn't necessarily have to do,
Yeah.
or for caring for the other children. And a lot of these videos, the women are saying, what happened in childhood, being the oldest female child, has carried into adulthood in this
Mhm.
sense of obligation and responsibility that I have everywhere. I'm people
Yeah.
like, I'm choosing healthcare careers because this is how I operate. And I think
Mm.
it's a really important and interesting phenomenon to be aware of. Many of the people
Yeah.
making those videos are part of large families. Many
Mm-hmm.
are part of immigrant families or
Mm-hmm.
families with a lower socioeconomic status where essentially they couldn't hire a nanny. They couldn't
Mm-hmm.
send all the kids off to daycare. They had
Yeah.
everybody, or by choice, they just kept everybody home. But when it's dad off at work, mom at home, and 7 children,
Mm-hmm.
then naturally the older children have to help more or start to help more.
Yeah,
And
sure.
so I think there's a social conversation going on about that. And like, uh, what I noticed, well, what's important first is the research doesn't show that just being the eldest daughter means that you will necessarily do the most work, but like it's not causal. Like because you're born first,
Yeah.
this will have to happen to you.
Yeah, sure.
But I think there are enough women saying this is my reality for us to understand it's a real thing.
Mm-hmm.
And so when we bring up that conversation, there's kind of two ways to think about it. And one is, are you just still talking about childhood and what happened in childhood, and you want to resolve that and heal
Yeah.
something from the past? And that would be really important, but not my area. And then the
Yeah.
second part is, are you thinking as the eldest daughter, what's my responsibility toward my parent or parents, and how is
Mm-hmm.
that different than what the other
Yeah.
siblings had? And that's kind of the area where I lock in,
Yeah.
because I'm not a child psychologist or a therapist, so I try to stay away from helping people figure out their past and
Yeah,
healing their
right, right.
past,
That makes
and
sense.
really focus more in on, okay, well, what does that mean for my today and for my future? And then act kind of as a coach to say, you have options. You're not
Yeah.
locked in this system
I
forever.
love that.
And the first step is awareness. So just noticing a pain point in your life is a
Mm.
great springboard for
Yeah.
creating change in the future in your family, even if it's very little by little or it takes a long
Mm-hmm.
time. Change is possible.
That's amazing. This is kind of more of a personal question, but I am a daughter, and I actually am also a communications. I have my bachelor's in communications, so I love what you're doing and what you're talking about. It's so important. And based off of that, why do you love learning communication?
Well, I think communication is sort of the stuff of doing life. And I
Mm-hmm.
particularly, when we think of communication or communications, like in my field, we think communications with a little s more means like media,
Yeah.
journalism, newspaper, technology kind of communication, mass communication,
Yeah.
Facebooks, etc.
Mm-hmm.
And communication, no S, is how we get along with other people in our
Mm-hmm.
lives. And so that can be in spaces like at work. How do I
Yep.
get along with my colleagues and my boss and
Mm-hmm.
um, the organization, the
Mm-hmm.
president, whatever. It can be in our neighborhood, it can be in our family,
Yeah.
it can be friendships. And then once we start to think, well, how do I get along? Really, the study of communication is how do I make meaning out of any way that any other person is being or acting? So
Mm.
if my best friend comes up to me and she's acting a certain kind of way, her face, her body language, well, I am making meaning out of what I
Mm-hmm.
interpret from what I know of her of the past and what I see
Yeah.
present. And then I have options of how to respond, and how I respond then creates new meaning in our relationship in that moment. So, uh, when we think about that in the context of family, it makes me very hopeful. That I think sometimes we think when we're not noticing sort of these little bits of
Yeah.
space in between our lives, and that new important things are happening in our world every day as we make meaning with our children, with our partner, with our parents, with our neighbors, with our,
Yeah.
society, then we miss the possibility that we could optimize it, we could change it, we
Mm-hmm.
could
Mm-hmm.
upgrade it.
Yeah.
And that's so, but that part's very hopeful to me because a lot of people are stuck in, disagreeable situations or
Yeah.
unhealthy situations, and
Definitely.
it can
Mm.
feel very paralyzing. Like, this
Hmm.
is all I get. This person's never going to change. But the
Yeah.
field of communication, the study of communication tells us if I change, then we will change. I don't have
Mm.
to make
So
you
good.
change. If I change, then the dynamic changes because communication is an interactive process. And
Hmm.
our
Hmm.
relationship is always ongoing, creating,
Yeah.
reifying, reshaping, expanding, and contracting. And all I need to do is have a commitment to be in relationship with you. And
Mm,
that
that's so
just means
good.
I keep coming back and trying. And you know, I was raised by a marriage and family therapist. My mom went to school when I was about in middle school, and she earned her degree in counseling. And she really tried, you know, she really started changing the family system because she had
Mm.
come from some trauma in her early life and in her family. And it was
Yeah.
really not very acceptable in the 90s to go get woo woo therapy certification.
Yeah. Yeah.
And
Definitely.
but by doing that, she changed my mindset about
Mm,
how we can make an impact in our family through talking. That
definitely.
talking is the currency that we
Mm.
can use. And
Oh,
of
I
course,
like that.
hugging and eye contact, those are also currencies. You know, listening is a communication currency.
Hmm.
But we don't just have to think, if only I had more money, my family would be better. Or if only I didn't live in this state, I could live in that state, my family would be
Yeah.
better.
Hmm.
Really, you get down to the micro level, and lots of things in your life can be better through the currency of your communication skills.
Oh, I love that. I love that talking is currency. That's so important because I think in families especially, there's so many things that go unsaid, and then it just builds tension, it builds toxicity. And if we talk about these things, it solves so many issues. And if we talk about these things in an effective, kind manner, it can solve so many issues. So I love that you said that. That's so important. And then how do you think, you had mentioned earlier a little bit about community. How do you think um, daughtering and community kind of collide or connect?
Yeah. You know, as a daughter, I'm thinking beyond my little hub of my little home,
Hmm.
right?
Hmm.
So I'm in my 40s and I live here at my house with my husband and my two kids and our dog and our cat named Kevin.
I
But
love
my
that.
mom, but my
That's
mom and
great.
dad don't live right here or even in my
Yeah.
town. And so often on a day-to-day basis, I'm thinking things like make the bed, brush my teeth, make dinner, you know, go to
Hmm.
work.
Yeah.
I mean, check for the mail. And but the truth is that I'm always thinking about my mom and dad as well. I'm often,
Hmm.
you know, in these moments thinking about their health or their longevity or the next visit
Hmm.
or something like that.
Yeah.
And so I think that one of the things to notice is that we can think and be and act on multiple levels all at the same time. And
Mm.
one of them is our small family, and it can get distracting in all the little things we deal with. But we're
Yeah.
also thinking in the bigger picture. And so that has to do with thinking of our parents and how to interact with them. But ultimately, our parents are also members of our extended community. And I
Yeah.
have to decide, how often do I go spend time outside my little hub with members of
Mm.
my community, and what battery life do I give them? And what's the
That's good.
benefit that I get from doing that as well? What do I gain
Mm.
from
Mm.
participating in a wider group? So I think for daughters and something like eldest daughter syndrome, a lot of time the spotlight can be on what daughters have to give,
Yeah.
what we pay, what the
Mm.
cost is, and the
Yeah.
obligation. And so I would shift everyone's attention. I would say those are valid concerns and things that we think about, and we think about them in our marriage or as a parent too. But we
Hmm.
also need to think about, what do I gain? What do I
Mm.
get from being a member of a community? I get
Yeah.
to have people who lift me up, who are there in a crisis, who are cheering for my well being, who have like
Hmm.
minded pursuits. And
Yeah.
there is such a wonderful humanity to that, but it doesn't happen by magic. I have to go out of my hub, I have to participate, and I have to be
Mm.
part of that agreement to lift other people up. So there's
Yeah.
both a cost and a benefit, but I don't want to miss the benefit because I'm really focused on the cost, right?
Mm.
And
That's
so
so good.
whether with daughtering or with community, um, I have to put in the work. And
Yeah.
but I don't have to put in too much work, because it should balance out. But I need to have an eye on what is it I enjoy about these people and what is it
Mm,
that I'm getting out of this, even if it's not something I'm getting out of it today, but an investment in a future payoff that they'll be there when I need them.
definitely. Yeah. And I think it's, from what you're saying, I'm gathering, it's really about self-awareness. Like, how does this make me feel? How does it affect me? Is it good or bad? And, what can I give to this? I really like that. That's so important, especially I
Yeah,
think, oh, go ahead. I'm sorry.
well, there is a self-awareness, right? I need to think about that. But when we're
Mhm.
talking about community, I also need to think about what's my obligation. And I
Mm,
am beholden to the people around
yeah.
me. So if my neighbor here, the street that I live in, if I see some water leaking out of the front of their house, or one thing that's happened, the lady across the street, she has little kids, and I've noticed sometimes her car is out front and the doors are just wide open. And
Oh,
she either
yeah.
forgot to close them or a kid came out and opened the door and forgot to close it.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I have a responsibility to her as a member of
Yeah.
her community to keep her and her family and her car safe. Go over there and I say, hey, you have this, car door open. But I don't just do all giving all the time. I also
Mm,
get to receive. I just may not get to receive the benefit today. It might be
yeah.
something that I know I'll get in the future.
I like that. I think that's especially important. We serve homeschooling families, and I think so many moms can get very burnt out with homeschooling. You're juggling kids' schedules, you're doing it all basically from home, and you're always together with your kids. So it can quickly become a lot. So I like that you are talking about these important issues because I think moms need to have boundaries with themselves, but then also with the people around them so they don't get burnt out and they can be effective as
Yeah.
moms. It's really
Yeah,
important.
I think one of the things I think about, and this might be helpful for a homeschooling mom, is metaphorically thinking about being a homeowner.
Yeah.
I like being a homeowner or a home mortgager, um, but I have to take out the trash. I have to take the leaves off of the, gutters. I have to
Mhm.
deal with if there's a fallen tree
Yeah,
or,
sure.
some bird issue of something nesting where they're not supposed to.
Hmm.
And it would be really easy to get caught up because those things come to my attention very rapidly. They're in my face and they're very, urgent. I have to take care of them. But
Yeah.
I have to remember to stop and say to myself, I like being a homeowner. I'm grateful for this house. I love
Mm-hmm.
living in this community. And I think that's one of the things that we don't do often enough. And I can
Yeah.
imagine homeschooling moms, they're like, oh, I have to do this worksheet, or I have to go to this place, or I have to prepare
Hmm.
this lesson, or I have to create these snacks. And we
Yeah.
don't always spend enough time saying, but I like this. I
Hmm.
chose this. I'm
Yeah.
grateful that this exists as a choice in my community, my government, my household, my financial situation.
Yeah.
And so we have to exercise that gratitude to kind of think, this is a purposeful life, and this is a
Mm.
purpose that I've set forward. And so even though I have to quote unquote take out the trash all the time,
Yeah.
I am grateful that I have the opportunity to do that.
I really like that. And then, kind of along the same lines, how can mothers and daughters foster good relationships, good communication within the home, especially as homeschooling families? When you're always together, it can get hard sometimes when you're always together, even though it's a beautiful thing, it can become challenging. Personalities
Yeah.
clash, differences can happen, that type of thing.
Yeah, so my work is about adult daughters. And so in this case, the adult daughter would be the mom of the
Yeah.
homeschooling, and the relationship I would coach her on would be with her mom, so the
Mm,
grandma.
hmm.
And because that's where my emphasis would be. And so what I would
Yeah.
say is that as a mom, as a woman in midlife
Yeah.
with young children, what you can do is narrate how much you're doing to your mom, to the grandparents, and
Hmm.
ask them for their support, whether it's verbal or physical support, and engaging them. And part of daughtering is also talking to your children about their grandparents in a certain way, carrying
Yeah.
on legacy. I know many homeschooling families do so because they were also homeschooled and they think of
Yeah.
it as a part of their family identity and they
Mm-hmm.
can pass on those notes. So,
Yeah.
really, when I'm talking about daughtering, I'm talking about you as the daughter, me as the daughter,
Mm-hmm.
and
Mm-hmm.
putting our attention to how can I honor my daughter, even in the midst of mothering, or
Yeah.
even in the midst of, you know, being very busy with
Yeah.
this life. But it also can sometimes mean boundaries. If I'm busy with homeschooling my children, then I have to be able to tell my parents, no, I can't come and paint your
Yeah.
help you paint your house, next weekend.
Yeah.
No, we're going to this homeschooling event. So I
Yeah.
think really being boundaried around your
Mm-hmm.
time is
Mm-hmm.
also something that women in midlife need to be
Yeah.
thoughtful of because you only have so much battery and you only have so much
Mm-hmm.
time that your children are young. So
That's so
you
good.
have to kind of figure out how to manage all the external things that are making homeschooling hard when it's not necessarily homeschooling that's hard. It's those
Mm.
extra things that keep
Yeah.
intruding on.
Yeah, the things that pile on. I really like that. And then how do you suggest adult daughters work on emotional resilience as they're being moms, as they're homeschooling? How do you suggest they do that?
Yeah, I think that one of the things that we have to do, especially when we spend a lot of time with children, is find adult relationships and time to be an adult and talk in adult ways. So,
Yeah.
luckily, many homeschooling communities do that, but we often get focused on bringing the children together and don't notice that it's time that the adults need to come together. So,
Mhm.
for the moms or for adult women, I would say, you deserve to have a partner who listens and you have to narrate for them what you were doing all day if they weren't there to watch
Mhm.
and
Yeah.
not just like good, good, fine, same old. You have
Yeah.
to you have to narrate not only because they weren't around, but because a lot of the work of homeschooling is invisible. Saying
Mm.
things like, I'm
So true.
planning for next summer's lessons. I'm
Yeah.
saving money for this fall's big trip to the museum.
Yeah.
What are
So
the
true.
things that you're doing that are mental, that are emotional, that, your partner comes home and you can say to them, well, today was a big emotion day. So I spent most of my day not focusing on math, but on the hearts of our children
Mm.
and soothing them and comforting them. And if you don't tell your partner that, if you don't tell your mom that, if you don't tell your girlfriend that, then you're not fully expressing the full complexity of homeschool because you're not just teaching math. You
Yeah.
are uh, you're a delivery system for all of the vision and
Mhm.
values of your family and of your community, as well as being the pillar of emotional and cognitive support. And so it's a really
Mm.
big job, and the way that we can uh, bring others into it is just help them understand what all we're doing while
Yeah.
letting our friends and family and partner know this isn't me complaining. This is me just telling you about my job.
Mm.
And
That's so good.
yeah, I think that if you have a supportive partner, then they're going to be up for that. Now, maybe you don't just go on and on and on. Maybe you're like, okay, 10
Yeah.
minutes of
Yeah.
venting and then 10 minutes of describing, and then 10
Yeah.
minutes we'll move on to other stuff outside of that. But you have to
That's so
find
good.
people to talk to. I really think that that's, there's a communication specialist named Weck who says, who wrote a theory called sense making theory.
Mm-hmm.
And he wrote, how do I know what I think till I see what I say? So I'll
Mm.
say it again. How do I know what I think till I see what I say? So if you're an external processor like I am, you need to talk it out. You need to
Mm-hmm.
say it out loud to even
Yep.
know what you think of your
Yeah.
own experience. So
Yeah.
just don't keep that bottled in. Make it a priority to meet with like minded people or supportive people or somebody who will just let you yap about it and then
Yeah.
actually do that. tell
Mm-hmm.
others what it is that you're doing in homeschool. That's not what curriculum you're on, what grades your kids are, what achievements your kids have done. No, what you are doing, the work that you are doing.
Yeah. Yeah, and that's such a great way to, I think, support moms for the people who listen and, let them vent. I think that's a great way to, if they're both a mom, adult daughter, that's a great way to support moms and make them feel really valid in their feelings. I love that. And then what do you think is kind of the secret behind successful family communication? How do you think adult daughters and then families in general can kind of work on that?
Yeah, so one of the things I talk about, I have a book. It's called Good Daughtering: The Work You've Always Done, the Credit You've Never Gotten, and How to Finally Feel Like Enough. And one of the things I talk about a lot in the book is invisible labor. And so invisible labor are the things that we do that are not paid and they're not noticed. Now, in a regular family system, that might be like you did 5 loads of laundry and nobody noticed. Your
Sure.
5-year-old
Yeah.
didn't notice, your husband didn't say anything, nobody called
Mm-hmm.
and gave you a parade.
Yeah.
But in homeschooling, invisible labor is going to include, I talk about 4 different types of invisible labor between daughters and their mothers, which is or 4 different types of labor: actions, acting, being, thinking, and feeling. And so, acting, the things we do, the food we make, the collages we do, the curriculum we teach, that's visible. But the things that we're thinking about and planning, the emotions that we're tending and soothing and smoothing, and the identity and
Mhm.
tradition legacy work that we're doing, those are invisible because they're happening in here.
Yeah.
So, in my belief is that successful communication, successful relationships come out of making that stuff visible. And so whether you are the partner who's asking, like, what were you thinking about today, or what's
Mhm.
on your mind for next year or 5 years from now,
Yeah.
um, but getting into the stuff that's in our heads, the stuff that's in our hearts, when we externalize that and share it with someone, then
Hmm.
that's when we're finding real healthy communication, and we're really
Yeah.
in relationship and letting the other person know us. And that's not complaining. That is not complaining. It's revealing.
Mm.
And so we have to reserve enough energy from our day to
Yeah.
be able to put energy toward that with our partner, with our parent, or with our friend.
That's great. That's wonderful. And to wrap up, where can people find your book? Where can they find you? How can they access your resources?
Yes, I'd love people to come to my website, daughtering101.com. You can buy the book from my website, or you can buy the book Good Daughtering from Amazon, Barnes and Noble, trusted bookstores near you. I love a local bookstore. So go to
Yeah.
your local bookstore and ask them to get it for you. And I'm on Instagram, Facebook, TikTok, I have a Substack, and all of
Great.
those are at Daughtering 101. So I'd love to hear from
Awesome.
you.
Great. Well, thank you so much for joining me today. I really appreciate everything you shared. I think it's going to be very informative for our families that listen to this. I know I took a lot away from it, and I'm going to definitely check out your book. It looks great.
Okay, perfect. Thanks so much.
Thank you. Bye-bye.